Right now the slope is 20 over 10. That's half of a cost minimization. But the other half would be my production function. How do I produce this good? And each firm, for different parts of its production, have a production function. How do I produce Q? How do I produce that Q? The general form of production functions takes the form a k to the alpha generally times L to the beta, with alpha and beta being less than 1, greater than 0. And so it might take the form Q equals 1 times k to the 1/2 times L to the 1/2. There's a production function.
Wait, what?
Can you explain the top one again?
Can you,
Top one.
yeah, can
It's
you,
just a generalized form of constant times the amount of capital used to some exponent times the amount of labor used to some exponent, b. That's what that means. It's just a generalized form. And another production function might be Q equals 3k to the 1/3, L to the 1/4. A different firm. So another firm's production function might be 6k to the 3/4, L to the 2/3.
and then the upper,
These are, so imagine that, so the upper is just a generalized form.
and then it says that
Alpha-
alpha and beta are less than 1,
Less than 1,
greater than 0.
There's
Okay.
between 0 and 1. And
Looks like a utility curve.
yeah, it's a lot like utility curve. And so you plug in numbers. I just sort of said, all right, we want Q to be 100 here for this firm, and Q to be 100 here, and Q to be 100 here. We're not going to do it, but you sort of fantasize. Imagine you could plug in different combinations of capital and labor to get 100 here. You do the math, and sort of you could imagine doing the math. And in each of these firms, you could plug in different combinations of K and L, and you would reach 100 mathematically. There'd be a lot of different ways to make 100 if you're making cars, 100 cars.
So 100 is the quantity of the good?
Yes.
Okay.
Q is the quantity of good. And so imagine you have an order for 100. If you want us to call it 100, it's 100,000, but we'll just call it 100. You have an order, you need to make 100 cars. How do you then make these cars as cheaply as possible? When economists look at firms, they sort of look at, they sketch out and they see the firm's production capacity with different levels of capital and labor, and then they sort of, from that, graph out their production functions. And this generalized production function, which is still used today to a certain extent to analyze firm behavior and how firms produce goods, it happens to be called a Cobb-Douglas production function. I don't have time to really mention this, but I will, just because it's a Chicago story. I haven't told many Chicago stories lately, and it's a personal story, which is that your teacher, me, happens to be named after this famous production function that analyzes firms. Based my middle name is Douglas. I didn't know until about 5 years ago. I was named after this production function that maps out how firms are.
Seriously?
Yeah.
That's like predetermined destiny. Was your father a economist?
No, not at all. School camp.
So you weren't named after this at all?
No, I was named after this. No, but see, here's the thing. Here's the backstory.